Welcome back. This is part 6 of the mentor training. Excuse me. And we are going to be talking about mentoring adolescents. Very important information here, so let's jump in. So when you're dealing with adolescents, this is the time of multiple identities. And there is a culture that's associated with that. And we'll talk a little bit about what to expect for these young people at this time of their lives. First, one of the things that is very important to understand is that these students are going to be very peer dependent. They look to their peers, they look to others to really kind of give them an idea of what is the appropriate things to do, the inappropriate things to do. This is something that is very common for this age level. They tend to be really egocentric. So that means that they're very focused on themselves. They tend to just focus on what their needs are, focus on the things that they want to do rather than the things that they might need to do. A lot of times decisions will be made with their best interests at heart without necessarily thinking of others. Again, this is just something that is typical of this age level. Adolescents are going to be very specific with the way they speak, the way they dress. We all know that, when a young person texts you, they will use some type of abbreviation and you will have no idea what that means. That is kind of the culture of them. They really have their own language that they speak to each other. And so it's really actually quite interesting to see, especially as, time evolves. There's always some new kind of term that these young people are using that a lot of us in our age level have no idea about, but just knowing that this is par for the course for this grade, for this age level. These students are really going to be influenced by popular culture, this age level rather. So they will look to their entertainers, they'll look to the people who are in popular culture to kind of give them an idea of what's going on in life. So your singers, your actresses, your actors, people who play sports, the people that they see on TV, Instagram influencers, etc. And they are really going to be keyed in to popular culture by social media. So Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat are just a few of them. There's always a new one coming out. We have found that this age level is not as active on Twitter and Facebook as people of our age group are. So we have found that they tend to stick with the video social media networks. One of the things that's really important to identify or know about adolescents is that they are always going to be searching for their identity. It's an ongoing search. So don't be surprised if a mentee that you start working with at a certain grade level, over the time that you work together, they'll change. They're not the same young person that you might have met. Their attitudes change. The things that they're interested in may change. And that's okay, because that is basically an indication of healthy development, because this is just part of the growth process for this group of young people. Excuse me. So adolescent culture, this infographic really talks about, even though we have this culture of young people that we spoke about in the previous slide, but there's all these other intersecting identities that can affect it. So although we have an idea of what to expect from these young people, there are some things that will affect how they interpret themselves in the world. How, their age, their race, their sex, spirituality, sexual orientation. All of these young people have to navigate these different areas of their identity, which can really affect how they grow and how they see themselves in the world. So you always want to remain very flexible and remain open-minded as you get to know these young people. And of course, with all cultures, communication is a big deal. And so again, culture is going to influence the way an individual communicates verbally and non-verbally. And this really goes back to the conversation earlier on when we talked about communication, is that a lot of the times students, they don't talk on the phone. They don't do the things that we used to do. They will more quickly send you a long text or something like that before they pick up the phone. So just keep that in mind when you're working with these young people. And just remember, with so many intersecting identities, we must do our best as mentors to respect their cultural norms in order to build a trusting relationship. So how does that work? I think the main thing to always keep in mind is to remain curious and learn from your mentee. Do not make any assumptions about who they are. Learn from them. Our students come from all walks of life. They have a lot of experiences and identities that more than likely will vary greatly from us, okay? So with that in mind, you have to always remember that healthy relationships are shaped by respect, safety, and trust. So remember to respect your mentee. You know, if there's something that they believe in or something that they do, respect them. You know, hold a safe and trusting space for them to be themselves. There's not going to be any benefit in a relationship with you if they don't feel like they can be their authentic selves around you. And just keep in mind that representation matters. You know, these are going to be students who will more than likely not be from the same background as you. And that's okay. We want them to build that cultural competency, but also identify ways that you can connect students with other professionals who are of similar cultures. You know, if you have a LGBTQ student and you know of, individuals who are in that community, if you know of different type of trainings or activities that they have for professionals that are connected to a particular group, don't be afraid to share it with the student. They will probably very much appreciate it. Now, what's really important here is that we have to avoid our personal agendas, okay? And what does that look like? Remember, it is not our goal to save or change our mentees, okay? That's not our goal. It might seem like it is, but it isn't. Commit to meeting your mentee where they are. Try to understand their worldview. Try to understand their way of life. So, there's a possibility that your mentee may not meet your own personal expectations. You might have this idea that your mentee is supposed to be, respectful with their teachers, or a mentee who's very responsive to you when you send them a message, a mentee who doesn't get into any trouble, a mentee who gets all these perfect grades. Just keep in mind that they're all unique and your mentee may not meet that expectation. And you can't take these things personally. You can't internalize if a young person isn't doing well, even if you're telling them, if you're giving them all the support that you can, the student might still be unresponsive. The student might not do well in class. And then sometimes as adults, we start internalizing or figuring out, well, what did I do? What did I do? Again, that's getting caught up in your own personal agenda. You have to be careful of that. Just provide insight based on your experiences, what's worked for you. Model how you navigate your life when you are faced with things. I think sharing stories of yourself when you were a young person are very powerful. If there are any things that you are dealing with as an adult that mirror some of the things that your mentee are dealing with. For those of you who are working full-time and are in college, be transparent about how difficult it is to balance that life. If you have young people who are dealing with, issues with friendships, etc., talk to them about some of the things that you've had to deal with your friendships. We think that sharing your experience is more important, and just giving them insight on how you dealt with things is going to be more important than you telling them what to do. At the same time, we want you to be authentic. So you don't have to over-identify. If this is something that, it's just not sure if this is not how you grew up, or if these are the things that you didn't see in your life that your mentee is sharing with you, that's fine. You don't have to try to make yourself or create this idea that you identify when you really don't. These differences can really provide an opportunity for growth for the student and also for you. So, acknowledge those differences. Be honest about things that you don't understand or things that you haven't went through. And again, it goes back to being curious. Ask questions, find out what it is to be in their shoes. And it can go so far in helping those students feel seen and respected. And keep in mind, as you step into this process, our students are under a lot of pressure. They are under a lot of pressure because the majority of our students, not all, but the majority of our PTech students are racial minority students. They're either Black, African American, Latino. They are facing a lot of racial injustices and microaggressions on a daily basis. Whether we see it or believe it or not, it does happen to them. A lot of our students live in or around Baltimore City. Baltimore City is a beautiful place, but there are some areas in Baltimore City where it can be very dangerous. And a lot of times students don't get to see the forest from the trees, so to speak. A lot of our students, again, we take all kinds of students from all backgrounds, regardless of what their grade levels are. Some of them have specialized educational plans. Some of them have IEPs, 504, where they need additional support for learning. So we have to keep that in mind as well. But you just have to remember that, these are young people who are facing real, personal, racial, and social challenges. And this can affect their ability to succeed. It can affect their ability to trust and even build relationships, especially when we don't have similar backgrounds as them. So just keep in mind and give grace to those individuals or to those students when you encounter that. And I think for that reason, it's so important to commit to educating yourself. And I will say this very strongly, if you're coming into this program as a mentor, you must commit to educating yourself. And so as a mentor, we want you to commit to quarterly diversity and adolescent trainings. We want you to commit to taking that time out to do those trainings. Take advantage of the offerings at your place of work. All of our corporate partners have some type of diversity and inclusion department. Specifically this year, as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of the racial injustices that our young people experience, a lot of corporations committed to and signed on to providing trainings and sharing information. If you haven't taken advantage of those, now's the time, especially if you're going to be working with young people, because you want to make sure that you're not doing any harm. The Maryland Mentor website, I provided that website here, is an amazing resource for information that's very specific to working with young people. I really encourage each and every one of you to get on their email list. They'll send you information about when they have certain trainings. It's an amazing resource. We really appreciate all that they've done to help us be a better mentorship program. So what if issues arise? What if you, feel like you're out of sorts and you don't know what else to do? What should you do? Well, we'll just say the most direct specific instruction we'll give is this. If you ever hear if there's a student that's a threat to themselves or someone else, you need to contact someone in PTech immediately, and not like in a while, like immediately. Send a message, send a text message, let us know immediately if they are a threat to themselves or someone else, okay? Now, if there are other personal or emotional things that come up, if you find a student who's talking to you more so about personal things more than anything, of course, if you feel comfortable supporting them, please do so. However, we really want every mentor to encourage them to speak with their school counselor, encourage them to speak to me, the PTech liaison, or their school coordinator. those services are there for them, and we don't want you to feel that you're in a situation where there's something that you can't handle. And again, I'll say once again, please contact myself at any time or any of the PTEC staff if you have concerns. Do not hesitate. We are absolutely here to support you. And that concludes part 6. And so now we're on to our final part, which is part 7, tying it all together. I will see you in the next module.